Hi, everybody. Sorry. I'm glad you all could join me. This is going to be a fun live. The premise for this live is simply that I want to teach all of you, and especially you beginners, that you don't have to be a pro in order to do wire work, and you don't have to have a huge stash of findings such as bead caps and spacer beads and things like that. I'm going to teach you that you can make all of those yourself with very simple and small, humble wire, copper wire. So we're going to get into that. But first, let's say hi. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Rosanna. Might be a small class today. So, but that's okay because I hope more of you guys come back later and are able to view all of this. But I'm really excited about this. I got all of the beads from Randy's Bead Shop, or not Randy's Bead Shop, Thunderhorse Descendants. It is her bead shop. It's just not called that. The focal ones I got from her months ago. And then I got some faceted tree, more moss agate from her in the Claim It Life bead sale, I believe last week. And so it got here, I did an unboxing, and I immediately remembered that I had the napped coin beads that I had gotten previously from her. So I'm really excited to show you what I've come up with and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and add my bead mat to the stage and then make it the only one. Okay, so essentially, and you'll see why I say essentially in just a moment, we're going to be making a necklace like this. Oh, how could I forget? I also got these fluted floral glass beads from her. Wrong way, Heather, go out a little bit more. From her Claim It Live bead sale. And at first I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. And wasn't sure what I wanted to string through them. I tried silver, didn't like it, didn't like the sheen that it gave. I didn't like the way the gold looked in it. And then I put the copper in it and was just kind of like twirling it. And I love the little hint of the copper wire every so often that came off. Because they're fluted in a floral shape, you're not going to necessarily see the copper wire, except it just kind of like glints out at you every so often, which I loved. But I literally made, outside of the beads, of course, every portion of those. And you're going to see those look like they have either a bead cap and or a spacer bead on them. And they don't. I'll show you. And I did my focal with, hi, Becky. Hi, Tammy. Glad you guys could join us. I made my focal using twisted wire and these gorgeous hand-napped moss agate coin beads. And literally, you guys, they've been sitting in my stash for so long. And I'm so excited that I finally thought of something to make it with. This is not the same focal. We're not going to do the same focal as the one that I used here because I want to give you guys a little bit of a variation of that. This is a focal that I made, and this is 22 or 26 gauge wire that was twisted, and then I folded it in half and I twisted it a second time. And I was kind of inspired by these. Sorry, guys. I know there's a lot of stuff on my mat right now. I'll zoom in when we get to the design part. But I kind of got my inspiration from there. And for this focal. But I do have another piece of twisted wire that I can use to kind of give you guys an idea of how I made the different shapes, and who knows, I might like this focal the best. So, like I said, I made all of these findings with nothing more than some very humble twisted wire, you guys. It does not take long to do. Let me see. I'm going to zoom in just a bit so that you guys can see. This is one of these is the 26 gauge twisted wire, and this is 24 gauge twisted wire. And then, like I said, I took that, folded it over on itself, and twisted it a second time. And I have a couple of tricks to make this easier for you. I use my husband's power drill. Well, it's actually mine now, but because he lost mine. He lent it to somebody and it disappeared. So here, I'm going to zoom out a little bit again just so that you guys can see. So what I do is I twist wire in half. And then when I get down to the end, I take my Xuron needle nose pliers and I fold it over once, grab onto those, and I give it a twist. And there's a reason I do this. I do the twist so that the drill actually has something to hold on to and my strands aren't separating. Then I fold it over again because I'm going to try my best to do this sideways so you guys can see. I'm going to stick it directly into the awl. And the last thing you want to happen is to have one of your wires go into this part when it's still open, because then it will break off when you're trying to close the drill. So I always try to get my wire centered in the middle, and then I close it. Until it's nice and tight, and you're going to twist even until it clicks. Then you're going to take a piece of wire, which I like to use 18 gauge wire. You're going to put it through the loop at the end, and then you're going to start the drill. And at some point, you're going to feel the resistance. And I usually go about another 2-3 seconds past where it starts pulling in. Because if you go much tighter than that, the end is just going to break off anyways. So that's why I only like to go a couple seconds longer. Then you're going to pull the piece of wire out, still perfectly good wire to use. And then I take my bench block, and without much pressure at all, just with my rubber mallet, I like to do a light hammer all the way down the twisted wire. And I don't want to flatten it or anything like that. What I have found is that by doing it that lightly, that quickly, when I cut the ends off of a piece of the twisted wire, they're not unsplaling. Or like if I want to do a wrapped loop with this, when I go to wrap, sometimes the ends were splitting apart and it was making it difficult for me to know that it was going to stay closed. So I much prefer, it's much easier to work with that way. I just love the way that it ends up looking. So with this 26 piece gauge of wire, and I think I'm going to grab this wooden board because I think you guys will be able to see better rather than the green background. So then what I did with this wire, basically the components that I made, I took my fluted glass and I wanted it to be a little bit more decorative between the loop and the wrapping. And so what I did is, this is the only part that I use 24 gauge wire for. Everything else I did with 26 gauge wire. But all that I did was take a piece of 18 gauge wire and I just started wrapping it around. Now, you don't want to do this hot tight. Otherwise, oh, this is not the 24 gauge wire. That's the double twisted wire. It's okay. We'll fix that. Here's the 24 gauge piece of wire. I just started wrapping down. And after I go a few times, guys, I go back to the beginning and I wrap that all the way around as well. And even when it gets to this point where there's that little bit left, I like to take my Xuron needle nose pliers, but they're bright green crimp wires. Crimp pliers will do this as well. And I do it all the way around so that I'm not wasting any of that twisted wire. And then I simply pull it off like that. And I go through and I separated them by about 3 coils. And then I bent it out a little bit just to make it easier to cut with. And this is the one time that I do not use my double flush cutters to cut wire. And I'll show you why in just a second. Even with my wire cutters, you can see that it pushed them out when I cut the wire. If I had tried to use my thicker jawed double flush cutters, I would have been wasting so much wire. So I just basically come in to where the end of where the coil starts to be like all tight with the middle part, and I clip there, and then I turn it over and I go and I find where it did it on this side as well. And I tried to make sure, I know it's kind of hard to see, guys, I'm sorry. I tried to make sure that I had at least 3 rotations of wire on each piece. And then I'm going to put these why are you not cutting? There. And then all I did when I got ready to do my loops for my beads, hold on. I do want to show you that if you do not want to go to all the trouble that I am right now, you can just wrap your wire around like I did as a sample on this. I just happen to appreciate the detail that the twisted wire created. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off now so that I can show you how I did the other one. I'm trying to be really careful. The last thing I want to do is break these beautiful glass beads. But now at least you guys can see that they're fluted glass, but in the shape of a flower. And they're beautiful, and 18 karat or 18 gauge wire fits perfectly in them. So then I just need a piece of copper wire, which I probably just cut way too much, but that's all right. And then I just I folded a 90-degree angle right there. One more quick tip. The way that I get my loops to look good when I'm using thicker wire like 18 gauge is just like I showed you. You can work harden using the part of the box joint right there. I go in and I push the very end in and squeeze. The reason I do that is because now that wire is flat. So it is much easier to get a grip at the very end of the wire, thereby eliminating that dreaded like straight piece of the loop. It's still there, but it's not as noticeable. But if I needed to, I could go in and trim that down a little bit. But it just makes a prettier loop. I'm going to go ahead and tuck that in just a bit. And I just like the way it makes the ends of my loops better to do that. It's just, they're beautiful. Then I took the thicker spiral and I slid it on to the bead. And slid it down by the loop, which is easier to do. And then I just put the fluted bead back onto it. And then I put another piece of the twisted wire. I think this is the thicker one. Yeah, right here. Oops. Missed the hole entirely that time round. There we go. And then I go up to do my 90-degree angle again. And I always leave about about 2 millimeters, because that seems to accommodate the bend that I need without crushing the wire down. Or if I were to have a glass bead there or a spacer bead there, it wouldn't mess with that. And then, as Becky has showed us, the width of mine, at least, and hers is typically enough. And then I still go in to the box joint, grab it, and twist it up nice and tight, because you want that coiled wire to look like it's a piece of the other. And there you go. You have a little fluted bead. And then what I did for the moss agate is very similar. There was just one extra step. And that extra step is that I wound some twisted wires around the first step of my 6-step bail making pliers. I'm just going to go. I'm like, in my head, I was like, this will take seconds to finish twisting it up. A little bit longer than that. But even when I'm twisting on my bail, to make sure that I get the use out of as much of the material as I can, I come in and smush that down. And because I flush cut my wire, it's ready to go. And then I just cut little twisted jump rings. And anytime I make little jump rings, well, jump rings of any size, I always like to go in and close them before I use them, even if I'm going to be opening them again. That way, I'm not trying to get the edges to line up when there's a bead in my way or another component in my way. So I just went ahead and closed them all up. You can give these another little smidge on the bench block if you want to make sure that they're good and sturdy, but the bead itself is going to hold it in place. Okay, so then to do the beads, I'm going to take a piece of 18 gauge wire that for the star cut agate beads that I got from her, it ends up being the right dimension. So I just used 1 1/4 inches. And all I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my bend. I'm going to flatten the end in the box joint. and then roll a loop. Just like that until you have your loop. And I don't know why, guys, but this is how my loops come out every time. They are never straight, and I don't know why. So I always just put it without applying any pressure and straighten it out some. Mine are always sticking up. I don't know why, but that's what happens every time. So then all I did was I took some of those 3 coil pieces, but these ones were done with nope, that's the wrong one, Heather. The ones that I use with the star cut were done with the twisted 26 gauge wire, and I moved it down. Then I took one of those little twisted jump rings and I plopped it down right on top of there. And then you just take a bead and press it down, and the end fits perfectly inside of that. It fits nicely on top, and the little coil sits within it. So then it looks like you essentially either put a bead cap and or used a spacer bead. Then to do the other side, which I don't want to, I have to admit I had to like cut off and start over because I kept thinking that I kept putting these on in the wrong order. And then I'd get it all done and I'd look at it and I'd be like, that doesn't look right. But like I said, just push the jump ring down tight and then squish down your coil. And then again, I'm going to leave about 1.5 millimeters to 2 millimeters space. I'm going to make my 90-degree angle, flatten the tip in the box joint. And I'm not applying a lot of pressure, guys. It's just flatter. All I'm trying to do is get it to where it's flatter there so that I can grip the very end of it to start my loop without it doing that like horrible click sound. Oh my pliers are not wanting to twist. Oh, that's why, because I don't know how I do this at an angle, but I do. It doesn't help that it's not the greatest pain day, but because, I had a invasive treatment done yesterday, and I'm sorry, but when they tell you non-invasive, you think, oh, not a big deal. My entire right leg is wrapped up from ankle all the way up. And I'm like, this is non-invasive, huh? To the medical world. I get it. I didn't have to go on any kind of anesthesia or anything like that, but still, I don't count that as non-invasive, and I'm always shocked when they do. So that's how we did these. Let me go ahead and use my nylon jaw pliers. Thankfully, that untwisted rather easily. I thought it was going to be much harder to do so. Okay, so all I did to make my focal frame, guys, was I had this and I was trying to figure out, let's go back out, but move the tools. Cover that up a little bit. I was thinking, okay, what if I don't have one of those DAP pliers that are this, but like on steroids? I don't have a pair of those. So I was trying to figure out like, what did I have right here that was a similar size as what I wanted? And I did find this, which is about the same size as some of the larger DAP or larger napped coin beads. So I just used that. I tried to find the center of my wire. I got up top more oftentimes than not to realize I'm not in the center. Figure that out. And then I try to push past just a little bit before I start twisting in hopes that it will be much easier. So. And then I have my circle. Now, if you wanted to do more of the point like I got on this frame, it's not hard. I can do it on this still. You're just going to put your pliers in like that, and you're just going to point up to get the nice like V shape. And then all I do is go in and go back up to the higher point, but I don't press all the way down because otherwise you're going to get rid of your V shape. But then I do exactly what I did around the my little storage container and clipped it. And this one, you're gonna futz with the shape more. It probably would have been smarter of me to start with this one like I did on the other piece. But once you get it the way you want to hold on to it with both fingers and twist again. Now, yes, I only twisted once here. The reason being, if I'm going to do a loop right now, I want to make sure that when I wrap around with the twisted wire at the end of making my loop, it's still going to be bulky looking like this. But 2 layers of wrapping with the twisted wire would be a lot more difficult. So just like with any regular wire, you're still going to want to turn this one up and do this one sideways. I like to use at least the second step when I'm doing a pendant, unless I know that I'm going to be putting really thick like jump rings or whatever, and then you might go up to the third one. With this, I think the second step is going to be okay. So I'm just going to put my pliers. You're going to bend it down as a 90-degree angle. Then I turn my pliers up, go up, over, down, at which time I rotate once and finish my wrap. So I'm going to go up and around. Make sure it's not too far up and that it is setting over center like that. So your loop is centered. You're going to take your pliers off, hold on to the entire ring, and just go ahead and twist to close. And yes, I left the other piece of wire on because I want to be able to get this as close together as possible without doubling up the wrapping. And so right there, I've got both of them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to snip off both sections. Save this. It can be used to make earrings, other components later on. I'm going to cut both of them flush. I'm going to pull this one up just slightly so I can get in there. And then I'm going to press them both down so that they meet. Oops. And you'd be hard pressed to tell where one stopped and the other one started. Then you're going to have to come in and you're going to have to futz with everything. Yes, that's a very technical term, as us crafters like to say. But I'm going to sit here. My husband, when he set up my camera this time around, helped me set up my camera. It's further away from where I'm used to it being. So I had gotten my this is on camera set down, and then it happened. And then all I did at this point was I went ahead and I pulled out my bench block. Okay, there's nothing important under there. And I just like to go in and kind of hammer the center. And there's more than one reason. And then I flip it over and do it again. By doing that, you'll create this itty bitty opening right there. If you take your like smallest little round nose pliers and put the tip in, you can then open that up more so that you end up with an opening right there, which is going to come in handy when I want to put something, hang something from right here. So let's start showing you how I built my, I showed you how I built this. So I have 4 of these for each side of my necklace. And then I have 4 of these, so I need to make 2 more of these little guys at 1.25 inches, which I probably just made my pre-cut wire roll off the table. So we'll come back in here and cut 2 more pieces at 1.25 inches. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't understand exactly why, but I find it comforting to know that my wire ends are always flush cut. It's just, I don't have to worry about whether it is or not yet. Here, I think if I just move this over slightly, I will be back in my like comfort zone. But I'm just going to bend this over at 3/8 of an inch, a centimeter, however you want to call it. Flatten my end enough that I can turn these loops without much problems and still end up with a nice round loop. I should have bent this one at the same time. I also like that it's all within the same tool. So like I flatten it with this tool, I wire wrap it with this tool, and then like I showed, mine are, oh, this one's actually flat. Look at that. Got one. This one isn't bad either, but it needs to be fixed a little bit. And then I put the little twisted wire component on, and then the little twisted jump ring. I was like, where did that go? It was still in my hand. And then another moss agate. Jump ring first. Then the twisted wire coil. You're going to pull it all down into place. Bend away from down here. And just go through the same process. And it's really easy. And then the last one. Again, you put down the twisted wire component. Where did my excess? Oh, there it is. I'm like, I know I rolled more than I needed. Let me make a couple more real quick. By the time I get done with this live, Amy should be here, guys. So that'll be fun. It'll be a good weekend. Got to get a lot of work done. We're hoping to get the website up and going and everything else. So then if there is something that we make and you guys want kits, we can put them up on the website. It'll be easier for everybody to find them. But if ever you guys see something that I make and you like it and would like it, reach out. If you want to purchase it, that saves me a lot of packaging. Well, I'd still package it, but it's would save me a lot of time, hassle. I don't have to go through photographing it to put it up on the website. You see what I almost did there? I almost bent that over before I put my stuff on them. But see, even if you only had a roll of 18 gauge wire and a roll of 26 gauge wire, which they've got a set online, the craft wire, where you can buy a set that has 18, 20, 22, and 24 gauge. And then they have another one that is 24 to 30 millimeters. So 24, 26, 28, and 30 millimeter. And both of them are under $20. So you would just grab those and then you can start making your own little component, and then you get to brag. Like, I literally, outside of the beads, made every part, every component that I used in this piece, which is nice. And I'm not gonna lie, putting together the first one I got, that Becky said the other day, have you ever just stopped and taken a look at a piece you're making and been like, wow, I did that? That's what this was. I almost wasn't going to make a tutorial out of it because I didn't want anybody to be intimidated by all the little components, but it's completely worth it. So sorry that I haven't been paying attention at all to the chat, but yeah. Oh, we talked about dexterity issues. Yeah, I've eyed the Wubber ones. I have all of the comfort care ones like Becky does. I bought a set of these after she did her review and I really like them. So you can get their set for very reasonably. And then if you can't invest in any other, like you only have enough for one other plier, I highly recommend the Xuron tweezer nose pliers, because those help you get in to like the little nooks and crannies you need to get to. But again, if you can only afford, you can do the exact same thing with the Xuron crimpers, because the last quarter inch of them is just like a pair of pliers. They're smooth jawed, so you don't have to worry about it, and you're set. So even if you can only buy like the Comfort Care set off of the Amazon and one other one, this. And I know that they're more expensive and you're like, oh, wait, but your tools and your cutters, it is so much better to wait and invest in a better pair, because if you don't, then you're going to be replacing them before you know it. So it is important for everybody to get a good pair of cutters, a good set of tools. And like I said, if you can only get one other specialty plier, I would recommend the Xuron crimpers, because you can crimp micro crimps with this all the way up to size 3. So I really like it a lot. So, okay. So then when it became time to start, oh, we haven't done our focal yet, guys. Okay, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to wire wrap this into the top of it. And then I'm going to put one of these moss agate on with the little loop and put that at the bottom. And I just love the green and copper together. It's such a classic color story. So I love it. For this, though, I am going to go ahead and pull out the 20 gauge wire again. I'm just going to cut off, I don't know, maybe 4 inches of wire here. And yes, even when I pull those out, I'm going to get about halfway right there. And I'm going to go ahead and I like to hold the long end of my wire and go ahead and wrap the tail around rather than trying to fiddle with the big long wire before I have to. So that's 3 good wraps there. And then I'm just going to slide the coin bead onto my wire, get it in place. And then again, this is where these tweezer nose wire, I'm not going to use this need this much wire, so I'm going to cut some off, guys, because it'll just get in my way. I'll use my needle nose pliers and go in there, do 1 wrap. Two. And let's go ahead and do 1 more for good measure, if it's not too mangled. Yep, I got it. And then I'm just going to cut off the wire, kind of burnish it down. And then it's in place. But I will tell you that this will spin freely sometimes. So if you've got a fidgeter in your life. Okay, and then I can use the scrap piece of wire that I just cut off. And I'll start by cutting that end flush real quick. And then I'm going to grab my itty bitty bead smith, because they've got a very small tip but are sturdy. I do have the Xuron ones that I could use. Sorry, I'm not explaining this. I'm just going to wrap around this until the second time you wrap, you see the top of the beginning of your spiral. And then while it's still on the plier, you're going to come up and bend it so that when you pull it off the plier, you're just pushing it straight through. And then pull it out until you have enough space for your nylon jaw pliers, as well as the pliers you're going to need to pull this through. And you're going to grab the tip and pull down. Now, something I also do is I will push this up just enough to get my pliers in there and then pull them out to straighten. These are brand new jaw pliers. There we go. There you go. Then we're just going to simply, I'm going to go ahead and put on, let me see if I can find a darker one than that. There we go. I'm going to slide on the English cut moss agate bead on there. And then, no, I don't. I'm going to do a smaller wrapped loop without much room, guys. That's why I'm using these pliers, because I'm going to have factor in the size of the loop into the length, and I want it to dangle right there. So I'm going to bend over my pliers, twist them up, go over, across, and press down, turn them till they're facing, and then I'm going to pull them in. Then I'm going to go ahead and center my loop up, straighten out that arm, and I'm going to just see if I think that's going to be long enough. And I think it is the right length. Then I'm going to go ahead and take my pliers. And I'm just going to wrap this loop up. And I kept my loop small for more than one reason. I don't want it to steal the show. Is reason number one. Reason number two is that I found it very difficult to get a wrapped loop into that center hole when it was a wrapped loop. I either had to make the loop so big that then it was dangling down too far, or it was too small and couldn't fit over all of the twisted wire. Actually, let's put this on first. And you'll see, even with the little jump ring, it's still kind of tedious. Sorry, I probably just went completely off camera. But I'm going to put my little loop on there. You guys have to remember, I just became a Gigi. My eyesight was immediately affected by that and that alone, I'm sure. Just kidding. Ooh, this coin is in my way. There we go. And then you'll see it just floats in the bottom. These are Xuron and these are Xuron. Both are made by Xuron. This is also a crimper. But like I said, the last 1/4 inch of the plier is exactly what the inside of the tweezer nose pliers would be, except these one come down to a very sharp point. So you can get into just about anywhere with these crimper pliers. But I do like these. I use them a lot, especially when I'm wrapping up loops. I like these because they're little, and so it's easier to use. Okay, now we're going to start putting all these components together, people. And for this, I made jump rings using my 3rd step on the plier, and I'll show you just real quick. So this is 1, 2, 3rd step. Put it into the center and just start wrapping. And I always, when I'm going around just past the first one, I like to make sure that I kind of squeeze down right where the wire starts in case that's sticking up at all. And then I'm just going to go around, make my jump rings. And I would typically use my my double flush cutters for this process, but I want to show people who may not have the double flush cutters just how easy it is to make your own jump rings, because it was the greatest skill that I learned as an early beater, because wire is not always the same color. You can order jump rings from one company. Heck, you can order wire from the same company and one dye lot and the next dye lot look nothing alike. So this makes that this takes the guesswork out of it. If this is the wire that I've used for the whole project, then they're going to match. So you always want to cut, make sure that you start flush cut, and then you're just going to turn your pliers over and match it up, squeeze down. Then you're going to turn it around, you're going to cut off, and you don't have to waste a lot. Just right where that impression is from the opposite end of the flush cutters, that's all you need to cut off. And then you're just going to want to get right up to where that coil ends, clip. You're going to cut it off. You're going to come around, cut off the unflush cut, and do it again until you're towards the end. And this one I might leave just because it came up perfect. And it's, when you're in the 18 gauge, it's not as noticeable, but I don't know. I might find a use for that. I don't like to waste, but sometimes there's things that you just can't like get through. So all that I did was I took these step 3 jump rings, open them up by twisting like that. I'm going to put on one of the moss agate and one of the glass beads. And then I'm going to close that right up. And I just love how the big jump ring looks and becomes part of the design rather than just a component. So double flush cutters, Cindy, I will send you the link. They are the best thing, or I'll just send you some. I'll just buy you some and we can meet up at Bernie's and I'll give them to you because you can get them right off of Amazon. They're also Xuron pliers. I don't understand how none of those were connected when I started this, and then I go to pick one up and magically they're all friends. But that's the way that it goes, right? It happens to all of us. Oh, that one is not met up for some reason. And truth be told, I'm going to take these components apart and put all of them, I don't know, I'm getting double stories. So if there's anybody who has history with the jewelry tumbler, do you guys think that it's safe to put these in there? Because I've heard yes, just to use the finer grit shot to put in there. But I want to do it just to get any like plier marks off of my jump rings, knock down any sharp ends, especially because I did use the twisted wire. But I've gotten, yes, you can, no, you can't. Google University doesn't seem to like, it depends on who you're asking whether or not you can. It'll work. So I'm a little terrified, but I'll explain that in just a second, Cindy. To the best of my ability, at least. So these are built much like memory wire cutters, which are also double flush cutters. So if you wanted to use those, if you had to choose between the double flush cutters and the memory wire cutters, I would go with the memory wire cutters because then it's more than just a one-use tool. But the difference is when these are concave in the cut. So like if you look in, those come down to a point. So when you cut the wire, one end is flush, but the other point goes into like the little triangle. Whereas with these, they're both straight jaws. So when it cuts, both ends end up being flush cut. So I hope that made sense. Rosanna, Becky, want to weigh in? Somebody who's been making jewelry longer than me. But yes, it works out great. I like them a lot. I've sent them to a lot of my beading friends. especially other content creators, because you guys, we cut so much wire. We probably use at least twice the amount of wire per project solely from the testing phase. Now, do we all always do a test? Do some of us just design on the fly? Absolutely, we do. But more often than not, we are doing a test piece before we bring it to you guys in tutorial form. So we don't, where I like to save money on wire where and when I can. Plus, anytime we're trying to figure something out, we're going to have to cut just to try to figure out the right length of wire for each portion of it. Takes time, because we're like, nope, had to cut some off. Nope, had to cut some off. Okay, now that I have these done, I didn't quite have enough length for my necklace. So what I decided to do was to take some sections, and these are also 1 1/4 inches when I start. And then I used some of my twisted wire and went around the center of it, cut it off, and that's now going to become part of my chain. And I believe I did 3 per side. But that way I felt like that length mimicked the floral, but I didn't want to make the sections as long as the floral beads, because it wouldn't have laid around my neck properly if they were much longer than this. And then I just put another large jump ring, another twisted link, oops, I might have to make more jump rings or live with the ones I made earlier. It's not like I can change it after the fact. Okay, there's that one. And it looks like I'm going to have to make a few more jump rings real quick. Sorry about that, guys. Amy just landed. My honeybee jumped in here to tell me real quick before he leaves to go pick her up, which I knew was going to happen. Oh, it's right there. Sorry, guys. I could not see my wire to save my melon. Okay. Typically, this is how I do my jump rings. I leave the wire on the spool and rotate until I'm got enough for what I think. And then I typically do one more extra turn just to make sure that I have room for my cuts. You can absolutely use your double flush cutters to make jump rings. They just tend to do better if you have the wires or the wire separated before you cut, and you don't want to try to cut more than one, or what just happens, and then it gets all mangled up. And I lost the jump ring because of it. It's okay though. Still worked out. So we're good there. Put these twisted links on. Where did I just put them down at? I swear, jewelry tools while you're trying to make a video, it's like you're in the jewelry place of like Toy Story, how the toys can all get up and move. I swear the jewelry pliers do that while you're making a tutorial every time. And they must be in cahoots with your glasses too, because you'll be looking everywhere for them and then they're not there. But it looks like I didn't make enough of these links, so I'm going to get to show you guys how to do this real quick. All I did was make the loops at either end and start twisting. And just like on the other component, I like to go back after I get my first few twists done and come back and finish twisting the end over here to help minimize my waste. And then I hold on to the coiled section and finish wrapping all the way up. And this is something, guys, that I would call like a pleasure project. This isn't going to be something unless you become Superwoman and can do each of these components much quicker than I can. And otherwise, when you think about all the time it takes to make all of the twisted wire and all of the components and everything else, it's going to be more expensive. And so it's something that I would use to make for myself. Or if I was making a gift for somebody special in my life, this is something that I would make for that purpose. And then for my clasp, guys, which I'll show you real quick. So this is a 2.5 inch piece of wire. I'm just going to do my favorite little component that I've been using a lot lately, where you go around on the one barrel. And then because my jump rings were all on the third ring, I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom part of the link around there. Pull this out just enough. Grab my wrapping pliers or my needle nose pliers, but this is what I use them for. Go around 2 full sets. Cut off the excess. Sorry. Tuck that down like that. And this will be what my clasps hooks into. Yes, this is a simple loop, but the end is down in behind and between the double wrap on both sides. So it's pretty darn sturdy. But this is where I want people actually joining into, and that part is a wrapped loop. So it's sturdier. And then if you just take a piece of wire that's about, I don't know, 1.5 inches plus that little bit of extra. I really hate when it doesn't go all the way to the edge. And then I'm going to pull out my itty bitty little pliers here to get a very small loop in. And then I'm going to smush that up because this is going to be the part, and try not to do that, the part of my hook that's just like, it's decorative. That's the word you're looking for. And then I think I want to go with a step 4 for the hook. I'm going to come down just a little bit for my hook. And then I'm going to come back and bend this back. And I'm going to make a loop just like I did the whole project through by flattening that in just enough that I can get a good hold on it. And then I would tamp this down on my bench block just to kind of like set everything in place where it is, flatten it out. Then we've got the hook. After I close the loop up the rest of the way. And I will affix both the hook and my little closure on with another jump ring just because I'm kind of cutting it close. I don't particularly care for a necklace under 22 inches, and this one is coming pretty close to that. So I just am going to put on the extra jump rings here at the clasp. If you like a shorter necklace, just leave these two out. Open the simple loop on either sides of the component. I didn't even realize that I have not attached my focal. I was like, look, guys, it's all done. No, it's not, Heather. Whew. And then I'm going to attach this onto my focal with the jump ring on both sides. I keep picking up that same one that got mangled by the double flush cutter. And now we can say that it's a finished product. Oh, let me zoom out so you guys can see the whole thing. And here is the full piece. I really enjoyed making this piece. Oh, Heather, I put these on in 2 different directions, I think. I put one on when the necklace was facing one way, and then I picked it up. So let me try to fix that real quick. That shouldn't matter, Heather. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I just needed to think about it for a second. It was just twisted. Oh, that's what happened. Because I did that. Because the little dangle do at the bottom doesn't like. But there we go. Like I said, this would definitely be more of what I consider a passion project. Something you make for a loved one or for yourself. But there we go. And guys, Randy at Thunderhorse Descendants gets amazing beads and interesting beads like this all the time. It's totally well worth it to log into her Claim It Life bead sales on Monday mornings. Oh, wait, she's doing bead drops now because she's getting ready to move. But it's totally worth checking her show out on Monday. At the end of Monday morning, she goes ahead and makes it live. and then you can purchase off of the new items and go through and look through her older items. I think she still has some of these fluted glass left. She did the last time that I checked, but even if she doesn't, she gets amazing stuff all the time. I was trying to see, she'll have really cool ceramic vocals like that. And she not only had the oval ones, but she also had round ones that were slightly larger. Here's another one that I got from her. Oh, you're going to start doing morning coffee starting Monday. Okay, wasn't sure about that. Okay, I'll have to go back and watch today's thing because I had a rough night, so I wasn't up early enough to check it out. But all I'm trying to say is that she always finds amazing stuff like this, you guys. I just love going to her website when I'm trying to find something special. And I almost always find it. Oh, got you, Rosanna. Okay. Thanks for letting us know. So go to In Rose's Gardens. And for the time being, I'm sure she'll put up a post on her YouTube page as well as in her Facebook group when things are done and things get back to normal. But in the meantime, her website, thunderhorsedescendants.com or .biz, right? It's .biz, Joanna. I believe it is .biz, thunderhorsedescendants.biz. And you can go to her website. Her page is also on Facebook. It is also Thunderhorse Descendants. So you can go on there. Yes, we're going to get Rosanna for 2 hours. Woohoo, that'll be fun. I still got to go to watch the members only yesterday, so I can see if you finish those hot air balloon sun catchers because I need to know. But anyways, guys, I hope you appreciated this. I know that this was a little bit more of an involved process. I know that some of you are probably saying there's no way that you could do this. I promise you, you can. Especially if you have a drill that has a chuck or because sometimes they have this and other times they have where you put the drill bits into. But even in that type of drill, you can get the chuck attachment. So, and that's all it takes. This and some wire. I'm letting you know from my own experience that it works well to bend it over a couple times at the end and twist it. That I have gotten consistent twisted wire ever since I started doing that. It doesn't get caught up in the side of the jaws. You're not trying to maneuver and hold two tiny pieces of wire in place while you're also tightening the chuck. And my husband said the little clicking at the end just means you're getting tighter. It does not break it. It's his drill, so I'm going to trust him on that. But I hope you guys all enjoyed this. Please know that you guys can do this. It's really and truly not difficult to put something like this together. And you don't have to worry about bead caps and all of that because you are essentially making your own. But I hope that you all love it. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. We have lots of stuff planned for this weekend, so don't worry. There will be more content coming. And until next time, I hope that you guys all have a wonderful weekend and see you Sunday.